It's Craggy's Connacht Rugby podcast. It's the post-match podcast after the defeat to the Bulls. I've got William Davies on the line from Pretoria.
Good evening, Alan. How are you?
Yeah, all good, William. Considering all things considering, I'm going to read you out a couple of stats here because you were there. You were at the match. Possession, Connacht 54%. Clean breaks, Connacht had 5. Bulls had 5. Defenders beaten. Connacht bet 21 defenders to 7 from the Bulls. Offloads, Connacht had 10 to 4. Connacht had 52% possession. They made 112 tackles and missed only 7, so they had a 94% tackle success rate. The Bulls had only had an 86% tackle success rate. The Bulls won 10 turnovers to 7, but gave away 20 penalties to Connacht's 15. How on God's earth did Connacht lose this game?
The Bulls were just better, I think, at certain phases of the game. Jake White was quite interesting afterwards. I mean, the penalty count was enormous. The game lasted 2 hours and 5 minutes. There's a lot of issues around that, which we'll talk about another time. But the water break is something he's obsessed about. And I don't blame him because it just seems to come randomly. But anyway, back to Connacht. They gave away 14 points in the first 9 minutes. Now, there was no, in my view, there was very little wrong with that first Bulls try either. But it was
there was pre-latch, and I called it as it was happening. I went, it's a flying wedge. It was a flying wedge. They hit the ground before the guy had the ball. The two boys were linked onto him, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. It's illegal. It's been illegal since before I was playing the game.
Jake White was of the opinion that within the 15 meters from the touchline, you can do that, and it's legal, and that's the law, which was interesting.
Wow,
that's his read of it. I thought the referee was awful. I thought he had a dreadful game. Two of the yellow cards were nonsense. I couldn't figure out. He seemed to want the TMO to make the decisions, and then eventually he would make the signal for the TV, and off he would trot. One TMO decision took 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy. Certainly, yeah. The splash of heads, I thought, was a crazy yellow card. That's just
crazy yellow card.
Rugby
incident. Nothing about it. Bottom line for Connacht is it's the same old problems close to the line. They get these chances and they cannot convert them. They actually played well at times, but you cannot start every game 14 points down.
Yeah,
you have to get something in there. There was the missed penalty. I don't know if that would have made much difference, but it would have been nice to have had points on the board. So yeah, from the start, and then they gave away the sucker try right on half time. And I said in the match commentary, I said Connacht really need to tighten it up here because the 7 points turned up. Andy, well, actually, let's listen to Andy Friend and Jarrad Butler.
Sorry for the interruption, folks. We'd just like to ask for your help to keep the Craggy Rugby podcast going. We need some support, whether it's financial for the price of a couple of cups of coffee a month. Go to patreon.com/CraggyRugby and sign up and become a patron. Or if you can just spread the word about Craggy, let people know we exist. You can follow us on Twitter @CraggyRugbyPod. We've got a website, craggyrugby.com, and as we've mentioned, you can support us at patreon.com/craggyrugby. Thanks to everyone who has supported us so far, and here's the rest of the podcast.
Andy, that's third defeat on the bounce, and similar situations. Connacht had a number, started very slowly, 14 points down, had opportunities in the first half but didn't take them, and then sucker punch try just on half time. You know, if that keeps happening, you're not going to get the wins column moving.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you think's the cause? Because you had these I was commentating. You had opportunities on. You're up there.
We had multiple, and we said the message at half time: individual error is killing us. And we came out in the second half and we repeated that. So it's very frustrating. I'm always going to be a glass half full, so I'm going to look at there were moments there where our set piece was very functional and actually either stopped or won quality ball. There was moments there where our defence held out a very good bull side and put them under pressure. There was moments there where our attack actually caused them some issues, but there were far too many moments where we had opportunity and we didn't capitalise. So that's, it's not broke for us, but it's certainly not where it needs to be. And you're right. 3 games on the spin, we got a repeat of things that are happening. We've got to fix that pretty quickly.
What do you think is the slow start issue? Because it sort of happened last week a little bit, but tonight it was very marked. It looked like the players were just slightly switched off, and the Bulls were well in just to grab the opportunities. Yeah,
I mean, the kick-off to the game, they kicked deep to the right, our bottom right corner. We kicked the ball out. The one thing we said going into the game, don't give Bulls access into the 22, because that's where they get their fuel. So within 15 seconds, we've given the Bulls access into the 22, which leads to a penalty, which leads to a 5-metre line-out, and we've just given them what they want. So, but that comes down to individual error, which is exactly what we said there before. So, listen, we need to be better. We know that. 3rd game of the season, and we've got a bit of work to do, but we've got enough time to get it right.
When you're chasing a game like that, I mean, Mac Hansen really tried to get himself involved. He chased around, he worked very, very hard. But the final ball there sometimes was just maybe a bit optimistic, and those situations became a bit frantic. Is that something that also you want to get under control, that you're more in control of what you're actually doing?
Yeah, I'll pay a compliment to our fighting spirit, because and that's what Connacht is. We had a lot of fighters out there, but we were individual in our fight often, and there was that frantic nature about it. But there's a lot of character and a lot of strength and of character in that team. They'll never die wondering, but we'll die a slow, poisonous death if we don't get more collective in the things we're doing, and if we don't eradicate some of those errors there.
Munster are up next week on the new pitch. Get back Sunday morning. It's a fast old turnaround, and it's going to be a whole new experience playing on that, because you haven't had an opportunity to you haven't seen it completed. It is completed, I believe.
I saw a photo today, so it looks pretty sharp. But you're right, we haven't trained on it. We've got a long flight back, and then we've got Munster on Friday night. But listen, we knew that coming out here. We knew what our draw was. We expected a lot more from ourselves out of these first 3 games. We now have 3 home games, Munster into Leinster into Scarlet, so they're all tough. But if we can eradicate some of those errors, and if we can keep our fighting spirit and keep our belief, I know we can turn it around.
Jarrad, the outcome again dictated, as Andy says, by errors and some good bits of individual play. What are you putting it down to when you're out there on the field? It was a tough old game, but at times Connacht were on the front foot for quite significant parts of it.
Yeah, exactly right. That was what was so frustrating about it, because you see some really good passages of defence, of set piece against a strong Bulls team. That's their bread and butter there. So, but like Friendy said, when individual error creeps in and you can't finish things off, or you can't add that extra pass or a couple of phases, you just give the ball back to the Bulls, and all of a sudden, we're defending them all 5 metres out again, and it's so bloody frustrating, because we've been working hard, putting ourselves in a really good place, but at the end of the day, no one sees that. They just see the 80 minutes that goes in on the pitch on the Friday or the Saturday, and at the moment we just haven't been able to put together an 80-minute performance. Do
you think that's coming soon, or Munster are going to be huge? They're not exactly flying either, so Friday night it's well up there. You need a big sports ground night. Absolutely, it's coming soon. I think one thing I can say is this group and the preparation that's going into these games, it's the best I've seen it since I've been here. The preparation that the guys are doing, the conversations they're having, it honestly is second to none, and we're going to click soon, and we'll put the performance that we're proud of. But we haven't done it yet, but it's definitely coming, and why not Munster at home?
Well, I know some fans are worried that the coaches don't sound angry at the end after matches, but I don't think I've ever heard him quite so angry after that first question that you gave. I've never heard Andy give such a short answer to a question. He was He was livid.
Yes, he was. And he's every right to be, because it's the same errors. It's the same. And the problem is they made 7 changes for this game, and the players that came in are still making the same errors. They're small errors, but they're key errors. I thought Mac Hansen had a really good game, but sometimes when he's at that type of pitch, he does throw the Hail Mary pass, or he tries something where you think, no, that's not going to work at this level. You've got to take the ball back into contact now. You've confused them and bamboozled them. The Bulls gave away a lot of penalties. They gave away 22 was the count I was given to 13, but maybe it was 20 to 15. That's too many penalties in a game. A referee needs to get control of that by simply saying, stop making the same things all the time. That's worth a yellow card to help the game.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I looked at that referee, and I think if there'd been a different referee, Connacht could have conceded well over 50 points in that game.
Yeah, I think
because for me it was men against boys. If you looked at the contact, Connacht very rarely went forward. They had loads of possession, they had plenty of territory, but when they actually had the ball, they weren't breaking the gain line with the same ease that the Bulls were when they had the ball. Now, you have to look at it. You know, people were saying, oh, my God, it's terrible. We've gone back to it's as bad as Bradley. The teams Bradley were playing were just Welsh teams and Italian teams. And, you know, they were half the time they weren't their full teams. There was only one player on that team that wasn't their first team player. And that was the loose head prop or the tight head prop. I can't remember which one. Everyone else was their first choice player. We don't normally play teams where they play all their first choice all the time. And we just are not quite capable of playing at that level, unfortunately. It's just the truth.
I don't think we are. I think we're capable of playing better, though.
Yes.
I think some of the stuff that happened was actually quite good. And they did rattle the Bulls. When they got the ball moving, and John Porch got a couple of chances, but it was so did Mac Hansen. They all kind of got half chances, but it was very hair 'em, scare 'em, because once they went the 14 points down, they're chase. And I'm tempted to say that better sides will come here. I'd be fascinated to see how, if I don't know if they're coming here, but how would Leinster get on here? How would they, if they had would they struggle with the physicality, or would they be able to put their chances away?
And you know, talking about the physicality, like they were giving an average of 3 kilos a man away in the pack. Like that's a huge average. I think the back rows, their back row had 20 kilos on our back row. That's a huge figure to be looking at. And Connacht, and the one thing you have to say to Connacht, they kept going till the end. And they kept trying, and they were willing to get out there and die. It's just the quality isn't quite there.
Yeah, and I do think the bench did well this weekend, which they didn't last weekend. Thought the 2 props came off and did well. I thought Gavin Thornbury made a huge difference in the line out. Doesn't look 100% fit. And Hurley Langton got involved. It was just one of those games, but you know, the bottom line is they've lost 3 games. There now remains 15 games in the season in this competition, and
well, my issue isn't the fact that they lost 3 games. My issue is the fact they've lost 3 games and haven't looked like getting even close to getting a bonus point, either a try bonus or a losing bonus, and that's huge.
They had a half chance maybe this evening. Because they did get those 2 late tries, and then you wonder maybe, but they made a couple of mistakes, and the Bulls got off the mark, and we had those endless repeated scrum issues, uncontested scrums, which, as my co-commentator Brendan Nell pointed out, they're still putting the ball in crooked even then. But they got to start winning. They've got to fix this. They don't, you know, they're being backed into a corner now, and the corner comes down to 3 games are gone, 15 remain. If you want to get serious in this competition, you need to win 11 games and pick up 10 bonus points across all your games. So you're now needing to win 11 games and pick up your bonus points across 15 games. And the next 2 games at home are very difficult. Munster aren't exactly flying at the moment. Leinster will turn up and probably do what
Leinster
they do.
Leinster went in and bullied Ulster for most of the game. Ulster Leinster won by 7 points in the end. Ulster had a chance to get within 3 points, and unfortunately the winger was carrying the ball in the wrong hand, and Leinster guy knocked it out of his hand with about 10 minutes to go. As he put the ball down, it looked like a try until the DMO came in. So Leinster have now won 3 from 3. So have the Bulls. Looking at what they're just going to eat us alive. Looking at what they were doing to Ulster, and then you look at what Ulster did to us.
Yep. Obviously, there's the new pitch, which might make even things up a bit because they won't both be used to it. But that's where they're at, and it's about winning. I've talked to Connacht, brought down 33 players. I'd have to double check this, but I've talked to 27 of them down here. That was part of the job I was asked to do by Connacht. Talk to most of the backroom team. You'll hear more of that. They've all talked about how well the pre-season went and how hard they're working, and they are. But it's about winning. It's wins is what you need. Wins breed wins. You win a game, you win the next game, or you win a game that you've had to scrap like hell in, and you get over the line, and then you win the next one. But Connacht are not in the habit of winning games. They didn't win enough games last season. And they've made a start this season. And the problem is, realistically, you wouldn't hand on heart say, well, they'll beat Munster and they'll beat Leinster and they'll beat the Scarlets. If they can win 2 of those, then they've their toe in the door.
Well, if you look at it, at the current table now, admittedly, Munster and Scarlets have to play a game. But at the current point, Connacht are on bottom. They've let in 102 points in 3 games, which is not great. But the next team above them is Munster, and the team above them are Scarlets. And then in 12th place are Osprey. So the start of the season doesn't look quite as difficult as it did, and now the Lions have just beaten Cardiff in Cardiff.
Well, that's a big win for them. Yeah, it's even the way the game was played tonight. At times it was like watching school age rugby. People were running around trying things. Both sides got sucked into this. There was guys passing the ball out and running around.
Yeah, I think once they went 14-0 up and had the other try disallowed, so effectively they'd scored 3 tries in the first 15 minutes, they switched off. It wasn't a competition. It wasn't a proper competitive match from their point of view, which is why, as you said in the commentary, it was just hear-em, scare-em stuff.
It was hear-em, scare-em, and that's Connacht are quite good at that, and they did shake them up a bit. But when you do that, you have to convert your chances. You have to take one of the chances and get your try and kick the conversion. And then they're thinking, oh, okay, these guys can actually play a bit. It was 2 very strange games down there, 2 very enjoyable games. Great atmosphere tonight. Not a huge crowd, but about 5,000-6,000, they reckon. There's quite a few up above us. We were in the middle of them. Had to be done a slightly odd way. We had to do it with one microphone and use an app because we couldn't get enough Wi-Fi. But it was worth it to be out in the middle of it. It was warm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was hot. It was hot during the day. Next weekend here, at that kickoff time, be about 32 degrees. That's going to test people when they come here. It's a cathedral stadium. It's a wonderful ground with a wonderful history. And they're very passionate about their rugby.
And very knowledgeable as well.
Yes.
Yes,
they are.
That's what I actually really enjoy, listening to their commentary when they're doing the commentaries from down there. So when you watch the URC thing, to watch it back and it's the South African commentary, you're going, wow, these guys really know their stuff.
Yeah, they do, and they're very serious about it. They're very serious about the Springboks first. They're not quite sure, talking to some of the journalists about this competition, but they do all say it's better than Super Rugby for the type of rugby they want to play, and it's the fact that the players are not permanently exhausted and don't know what time zone they're in most of the time.
Because it took me a good 5 days to recover from coming back from the West Coast, and these guys were doing that stuff all the time. I was going, wow, phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a long haul back,
and
there's a nine-hour wait in Doha, which I'm really looking forward to. I have spent longer in an airport, but I must admit my first vision of Doha wasn't particularly good. But again, when I get back, yes, I'll be tired, but my body clock will be
Yes.
spot on.
Yeah.
And if I basically go to bed for a few hours and get up,
Yeah.
and have something to eat and go back to bed and get up the following morning, kaboom, I'm back on my time. I haven't got jet lag.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to play rugby where I'm thinking, right, my body clock thinks it's X, but it's actually Y, and it's this. And
that's training as well. It's actually the training is the bigger issue.
Yeah.
They have to get back and try and get into their rhythm of training and whatever. So
Yeah.
the game next week becomes even bigger now, because Connacht haven't, not only have Connacht got a win, Connacht haven't got a point. Like, not a single point.
Well, that's. I suppose you could always have said maybe it would come to this. Last weekend, John Dobson, just chatting after the game, said to me, Connacht schedule's a disgrace. And he said, there's no excuse for that. It's not good enough. We have brought this up with Connacht, and they've said, look, they pointed it out, but the TV companies have a lot of sway, etc., etc. Let's look at the basics of this. They've had 3 away games at the front. Okay, 2 of them are in South Africa. You can't come down here for 1 game. You come down, you play your 2 games. That's it for the season. But you cannot have a situation where the 2 biggest games of the season are now the first 2 home games.
Yeah.
I've said it, it's ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ludicrous if you're in the marketing department and you're in the sales. Let's be honest, it's the quality of the rugby that comes after that. You don't have a Leinster or Munster. They're your big teams.
Yeah.
And this is a nonsense, but it really does put it up to them now. And they've got to turn all the positivity of what they've done in pre-season, which they talk about a lot, and the fact that they have belief in their systems, belief in what they're doing. Well, you got to say they got to produce the proofs in the eating of the pudding, or whatever it is, and they've got to get there. There's no point, going out next Friday night and playing better but still losing, because losing kills you. Winning fixes nearly everything in sport.
It does. Well, this is, if they lose next week, it'll be the worst start to a season that Connacht have ever had in the professional era.
Well, that's some thought to consider. And
the last time they lost 3 in a row was Pat Lamb's final season. They won the next 4 games, by the way. Not sure we'll win the next 4 games, but that would be nice.
Well, if they could win 3 out of the next 4, they'd be within range of being able to do something.
Yeah.
If they win 2, they're hanging on. If they don't win that, they're going beneath the surface of the waves. Yeah. The only thing is, it is a topsy-turvy tournament. You know, there are crazy results. There are insane scores. I mean, Ulster beating the Scarlets 55-39. I mean, that's great. I'm sure there was a lot of tries running, but you wonder about the general quality of the game. Last week's game in Stellenbosch was a higher quality game than this.
Yeah.
Because this was stop-start and there was a lot of drop balls, and maybe that was humidity. It's not going to get down tonight below 22 degrees, so humidity is a factor.
Yeah, definitely.
Thankfully, my room has wonderful aircon in this hotel, which is, I timed it from the time I walked out of my bedroom door this afternoon with all the kit, and it took me 2 minutes and 8 seconds to get to the entrance gate to the ground, which is a record. Yeah,
so now you're off for your lovely flight to Doha and then back to Ireland. When do you land in Ireland?
I land on the same flight as the team at 7 on Sunday morning.
Wow!
So I will have been traveling for about 25 hours, I think, give or take. I've set my alarm clock here tomorrow morning for 4. I'll get by Uber at 4:30, and I'll be at the airport. Sorry, I've got that wrong. I'll have to work it out. I have to be there 2.5 hours before a flight at 7:15. Right. Connacht are on another Qatar Airlines flight, but they're on the later flight, so they will only have about 2. So they'll find me in Doha probably passed out in a corner or something.
I'm sure they'll come over and wake you up and make sure you don't miss your second flight.
I certainly hope they do. I'm sure they will. And yeah, look, I'm not complaining. It's great to get down here. It's been really enjoyable. Brilliant welcome. I cannot emphasize how helpful everybody has been in the 2 teams in the hotels. Connacht have been very helpful with getting the interviews sorted. I was doing a lot of that for them, but they honestly, they do work very hard. I've seen the schedules. You know, their day is very, very controlled.
Yeah.
There aren't many gaps. They're unfailingly polite, and to me, they're all young men. Because I'm an old fella, and they are. And this, similarly with the management, I've had some good chats around with other people. Very interesting approach. And most people go, Asher, why do you want to talk to me? But when you talk to them, you realize their job is very intricate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we want to talk to them because we want to tell the story. It's not just about what happens on the field. It's everything that goes with it.
The point is, Alan, nothing happens on the field without the people that are behind it.
Exactly.
That's modern rugby. The analysis work, the strength and conditioning, the medical people who are here, the dietitian, making sure they're eating as well as possible, or fueling, as he calls it. It's not eating; it's fueling.
Yeah, and I think the one role that seems to be missing is the one that Jack Birtwistle was doing before he left for Harlequins last Christmas. If you go back to the start of last season, right up to Christmas, Connacht were really hard to beat and were scoring tries and had a belief, and they just don't seem to have that. It's only a couple of percent, but it's that couple of percent up on the top of the head that seems to be stopping Connacht from really moving forward. Now, admittedly, there was a physical element to it today, but yeah, you do get the amount of simple mistakes that were made, unforced errors that happened today. People can complain about the coaches, but the coaches don't throw forward passes. The coaches don't kick the ball straight into touch, in some cases not under much pressure.
That's a very good point. And we didn't really discuss the fact that Connacht had a try knocked off for a forward pass. It didn't really have to be a forward pass. If it had happened, they just scored. And I think the funny thing is, I don't think the Bulls were that confident. I think they did get a little bit from going 14-0 ahead, but they're very early in their season. There was a lot of changes. He was being asked by the local journalists a lot about the rotation policy, and he said, we have to rotate. We cannot just keep picking the same people. So I'm not saying this was a missed. I think last weekend was a missed opportunity. I think tonight is slightly different, but if you don't convert when you have clear-cut scoring chances, or you get field position and you make bad decisions, errors, individual errors or team errors in the dynamic of what you decide, it's not good enough. And they know that. They have a lot of time now. They're on the same level of transport as I am. They're not quite as early, but they have a lot of time to think about this. But they don't, because they arrive back Sunday morning and lo and behold, they'll get one big training session in next week for Munster.
Yeah.
And then they've got to face Munster. And obviously all that's going to happen without Bundy Aki, who is now essentially ruled out of all rugby until the end of October. I can't actually...
End of
November. Sorry. He'll do the training course. Now, that is actually much more complicated than I realised.
Right.
That involves supplying videos to the adjudicators. You can't just say you did it.
Right.
You have to fill in a ream of paperwork. There has to be organized videos. There have to be other players involved. There is also the use of just that sort of technology. This is a lot of work for a week.
Wow.
Again, when you read it, you just think, oh yeah, I did the training. I filled in, it sounds like you did filled in 20 boxes on a tick box.
Yeah.
No. But they'll do that. But I mean, Ireland, I can't see Ireland playing them against Australia because he won't have played any rugby.
Exactly.
Where I'm concerned then is Gary Ringrose will probably get injured.
Stu McCluskey was doing a decent job if he can stay fit.
Yeah, he's doing a decent, but it's just Robbie Henshaw as well will now be back at 12, where he is a far better 13.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he by any admissions, he let himself down, and it's cost him problems with Ireland. He's let his team down in Connacht, and he's got to sort it out. He has to sort it out, because that's the third offence. If you read the judgment, which is very long,
Yes.
it was a mid-level judgment, which would have been, I think he would have got 6 weeks. Then there was 2 weeks for the referee, which wasn't described as abuse, because he didn't actually abuse the referee. He didn't swear at him,
No.
but he was overzealous.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 weeks for the repeat offence. So maybe it was 8. It's worth reading. It's laid out, but effectively then he got 4 weeks off because he pleaded guilty. He accepted the charge. He apologised immediately to the referee and the other player who's had surgery and is probably out for 6 months. That happens in rugby. I mean, but the issue is,
Sorry,
I
go on. That guy played on for another 10 or 15 minutes. And made tackles, and was an intricate part of the try that sort of broke the game open for them. So you go, was it really Bundy that did that, or was there something else that happened later on in the game? And it just, you know. But anyway, that's a whole other story, and the whole thing of getting time off for leniency or getting time taken off for being apologetic. Like, Jesus, guys, come on. Anyway. We'll keep that for another podcast.
We'll keep that for another day. Interesting to talk to Jack Carty today. Maybe that we could put that audio out fairly soon.
Yes. Okay. I'll throw that audio out. So we'll get this one out as quick as I can. And then I'll get Jack Carty, because I didn't get around to putting Tom Daly out, so I'll put Tom Daly out as well. I should have put that out the other day, but real life got in the way, and actual work got in my way, and that early kickoff.
It does happen. It does happen.
It does. Okay, William, I'm going to let you go.
Yes, I've got I got to start packing now and stuff, but that just involves throwing things into a case randomly, I hope. Except for the broadcast equipment on the good stuff, everything else just gets thrown into a bag, and hopefully you hand it over to some chap in Johannesburg airport, and hopefully it arrives in Dublin as if by magic.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck with your travels, and hope it all goes well, and have a good night's sleep, and we'll talk to you again sometime next week. Thanks, William.
Thanks, Alan. Good night.
Loose, cut it loose. Break out or nothing changes. Side